The channel is inching closer to 50,000 subscribers. Be sure to hit that button, it would mean a lot. Lufthansa Group is home to many airlines across Europe and is poised to expand its reach in specific markets and venture also into new ones through prospective acquisitions. However, it's Lufthansa, the iconic flag carrier of Germany, that has really captured the industry's attentions through generations. With a legacy that spans back for a considerable period, how does the airline plan to forge ahead? What obstacles will it confront? And what lies on the horizon? One of the more exciting things taking place at Lufthansa is the transition to next-generation aircraft. Albeit this hasn't gone exactly as according to plan, but I'll get into why. Still, the airline is heavily relying on twin-engine offerings, such as the A350, 787, and the upcoming 777X, to guide it into a new era, where the business will be much more streamlined than it has been before. Arguably, this movement towards the next generation of fleet hasn't come without its hiccups. Notably, the airline has been the most vocal and primarily one of the most affected airlines due to the ongoing supply chain crisis spreading across our industry. As a result, acquiring next-generation aircraft on time, such as the A350 and the 787, is simply not possible. Additionally, when you're factoring in the certification and timeline for delivery of the 777X, well, Lufthansa has generally also struggled to move forward with the plan it would have envisaged when ordering these aircraft types. However, while obviously frustrating, it can be considered lucky. Why? It is because it still has its older aircraft, and this is a positive that it should count its blessings for. And I will explain now why it's so important it still has these aircraft types amid supply chain issues. So, during the pandemic, Lufthansa made it pretty clear that it ideally tried to rid itself of these less fuel-efficient wide-bodies, such as your older 747s, A340s, and even the world's largest passenger plane, the A380. While obviously upsetting as an aviation enthusiast, these decisions probably didn't entirely come as a shock. Airlines needed to cut costs to preserve their business, no matter how established they were. And ultimately, on the chopping board were aircraft already destined to be retired and not as efficient as alternatives. However, when Lufthansa saw demand return, remember, so much quicker than anyone had imagined, the airline was left scrambling, not just because it needed to reactivate aircraft types, but all inbound aircraft that would have covered for the capacity lost by the quad-engine planes' retirements were not being delivered as expected. So, Lufthansa basically needed to extend the life of several aircraft series for the shorter to medium term to try and mitigate capacity losses. While this will ultimately impact financials during the period these planes are once more operational, the ramifications would have been far too severe business-wide if they had continued playing a waiting game for these new aircraft that, as we know, when it comes to delivery, simply don't always have a time frame, and even if they do, delays can definitely be felt. So it's almost a blessing in disguise that the airlines still had some aircraft that could be reactivated. And obviously, I'm going to throw my hands up and selfishly, as an aviation enthusiast, I'm pretty thankful that these quad-engine planes are sticking around for just a little bit longer because they are a sight to behold. While not necessarily strictly related to Lufthansa and more within Lufthansa Group, for me it's really essential to examine City Airlines. This is an upcoming carrier being launched by the broader group, and yes, it is another one if there weren't already enough to get confused by. But basically, City Airlines is going to work directly with Lufthansa to basically connect passengers from key European markets to your core hubs of the mainline Lufthansa. Notably, this is Frankfurt and Munich. From here, the ease of transitioning to a mainline Lufthansa long-haul service should be possible. As touched on, City Airlines will act as an efficient feeder airline for the mainline Lufthansa and look to connect critical markets to the German company's hubs. City Airlines' intent has really been evident from the beginning, as they do have an order for the Airbus A220s, and while this will not power the new feeder airline at the very beginning, it definitely signals at least where the future lies and where we can expect to see them, say, come 2030. In the long term, Lufthansa must also analyze its operating expenses. This is obviously the more boring element, but it is very important. Industry-wide, we've seen expenses naturally rise, but there are specific areas such as the wage bill that have contributed significantly to this. This is especially highlighted by airlines that first ended labour disagreements with their staff. As a result, higher wages and obviously better working conditions have coincided with all of this and were handed down. So what does this mean? Expenses rose. Lufthansa has already said that for the remainder of the year, it'll be looking to implement several cost-cutting measures as they are determined to bring down the overall operating expenses wherever possible. This will include a review of their current employee base to understand whether there are any roles that could be considered surplus to requirements. They at least want to be considered more sustainable in the long term. What else is there to take a look at? Well, while there is a lot of focus that rests primarily on Lufthansa, as it should, as that's the video topic, I can't go this video without mentioning the broader strategy of the group to continue investing in markets where Lufthansa as a mainline or other airlines within the group have struggled to, say, stamp their authority and make a name for themselves. This could be for a host of reasons, but would largely be because of increased competition. This seems ridiculous though, like I said, for such a big group, but it is true. The current ITA Airways is a perfect ongoing example of the direction the group wants to head, and how a prospective acquisition would enhance Lufthansa's ability to enter better the Italian market, where it has argued for some time that its presence maybe hasn't been as large or as successful as it would ideally like. Remember, despite Lufthansa's stature in the European space, it is a hotly contested market. By no means is it simply easygoing, and airlines alongside their groups, if applicable, do need to adapt on a persistent basis. Take a look at your budget airlines that are rapidly expanding and taking market share away with their low fares. And then you have your legacy companies. Away from that, you have the battle of the groups. There's competition whether you are a part of the International Airlines group, the Air France KLM group, or throwing in the Lufthansa group as well. The future for Lufthansa is likely to be a very intriguing one, considering the many things that are ongoing, such as investing in the upgrading of cabin experience, and there are many considerations into what is ongoing as well that I didn't even cover. Take a look at the investments in upgrading the cabin experience to raise customer satisfaction levels. We know these have considerably dropped across the last decade because of a failure to upkeep with the high quality service standards that not only a full service airline should have, but also as a flag carrier of Germany. Many would argue that investments also in sustainable initiatives are going to need to be made to ensure that Lufthansa can align with the climate goals laid out for it. But what are you most looking forward to when you take a look at the future outlook of Lufthansa? Is it these next generation aircraft finally cementing themselves within the Lufthansa fleet? Is it potentially getting to see some of your quad engine planes just that little bit longer? Or is it something I haven't mentioned entirely? You can let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. Do be sure to subscribe as I push for 50,000 here on GlobeTrotting. Take care, be safe. I'll see you in a couple of days for your latest aviation analysis. And we'll fly.